Imagine if you could visualize the full picture of a person's learning journey as they master a skill. The problem is that journey is unique to each individual and different for each skill. One person learning JavaScript may work through free tutorials online. Another may take courses on an LMS and receive mentoring from a coworker. Both people may visit GitHub to search for source code and read documentation, but their time spent and the pages they visit will dramatically vary. As learning professionals, how can we guide someone in their development if we don't know which activities they're undertaking? How can we improve the process for the next person if we don't know which learning activities are most effective? The fundamental representation of the Experience API, or XAPI for short, is a data log of all your learning activities. XAPI is a learning technology specification that lets you track many different types of activities that contribute to or result from learning. With the explosion of technologies available today, the XAPI evolved from the growing need to capture more than just completion data and quiz scores. In fact, the XAPI drastically improves the potential for learning and performance analytics by enabling us to capture nearly any type of learning activity, to track the context around these activities, and to leverage data to drive personalized learning experiences. SCORM, the precursor to XAPI, was built to address the challenges of content delivery during the transition from computer-based training on CDs to the internet in the mid-1990s. For you digital natives out there, CDs are how we used to listen to music before iTunes and Spotify. We also used CDs to download programs on our computers before the rise of the cloud. Companies began making learning management systems to deliver courses on the internet, and they had wildly different architectures. This meant courses created for delivery on one LMS had to be completely rebuilt to work on another. The Advanced Distributed Learning Initiative solved these issues of interoperability and reusability with the SCORM standard. Today we stand at the frontier of the next paradigm shift. This new paradigm requires us to rethink the way we learn. The LMS is no longer the sole arbiter of training. In fact, we engage in learning across a spectrum of experiences that encompasses people, tools, and technologies. You can use the XAPI to capture the entire range of formal and informal learning experiences, such as reading an article or blog, watching a video on YouTube, searching databases for information, contributing to a wiki, posting in a discussion forum, collaborating via social media, sharing documents on Slack or SharePoint, running a simulation on a mobile app, or interacting with a coach or mentor. Virtually any activity with a digital footprint can be tracked with XAPI. Most significantly for performance improvement, you can use the XAPI to integrate performance data with learning data in one seamless interface, the Learning Record Store. You can understand the function of the Learning Record Store by reading its name backwards. It is a place to store a record of all your learning activities. SCORM was not built to capture this range of interaction, but the XAPI was. Whereas SCORM only works inside of an LMS, the XAPI can record activities from virtually any type of application, web-based programs, mobile apps, simulators, or any device with internet connectivity. Whereas SCORM captures limited course interactions, the XAPI logs not only an endless variety of activities, but also the context around those activities. Finally, the rules that make up SCORM are incredibly complex, requiring over 4,000 pages of documentation. The XAPI is decidedly simple, with only 70 pages describing the specifications. The coding required for XAPI is optimized for both machine and human understanding. Even though it was built with learning and development at its core, it is so readable that some developers have adopted XAPI in their non-L&D apps for certain tasks and workflows. Thinking back to our examples, learning today either primarily takes place or leaves a digital footprint in the cloud. Before XAPI, there was no way to capture this data. XAPI expresses these varied learning experiences as activity statements, which take the form actor, verb, object. Activity statements can also include context. These activity statements are fed into the data log for that learner that is contained by a learning record store. Enhanced with performance data from other systems, a learning record store gives you rich data visualization of learning and performance combined. This in turn leads to both learners and facilitators making informed decisions for a better learning experience. Take a blended learning initiative for a sales effort as an example. Villeroy and Boch, the world's leading ceramics producer, leveraged the XAPI to demonstrate a $2.9 million return on their training investment. HT2 Labs created a blended learning program for V&B sales reps, combining e-learning, face-to-face workshops, webinars, and monthly newsletters. Due to logistical constraints, some stores received only the e-learning component. HT2 Labs used the XAPI and their LRS Learning Locker to track real-time activity for both groups and combined it with performance data from mystery shoppers, learner surveys, and the store results from SAP. The stores whose sales reps received the full blended learning program demonstrated a 5.41% higher average transaction value and a 0.62% higher customer conversion rate than the e-learning only stores. The time is now to start thinking about how we can integrate the XAPI technology into our learning design and evaluation. Here are some questions for your consideration.